feelings when Colin said, "Why don't you stick around?"
I was very excited. Yeah, no, it was a long day for Colin, and he had he's trying to do double duty at the time, and so when he got the opportunity to get here finally, I was one of the last guys that he talked to that was on the coaching staff, and so he actually came into my office and sat down, and we had a conversation, and it was good. I was excited when I left the conversation, and he had offered me opportunity to stay, and so that was obviously exciting to me, and so that's kind of how it went down.
Any difference in your duties now?
Not really. I'm in charge of the entire D line now, but we also have Jordan Dove who works with the defensive tackles. So it's not much different other than, we meet all together, we install all together more than we did with my other duties. And so, but then we kind of separate in practice and do different drills. But other than that, it's pretty much the same.
One of the last guys, you could have been like, could you come in earlier? Were you sitting there like panicking when he's getting it?
Yeah, well, he had set a schedule. And so, and it was late. It was later in the evening, and and so I was one of the last. I didn't know if that was a good thing or that was a bad thing, but it ended up being a good thing. So,
what did you really want to add when you looked to the portal at the end of the season?
Well, we needed some depth on the interior. We had graduated some guys and then lost a guy in the portal, so we know we needed some interior D linemen, and then obviously we needed some guys with experience. We wanted to out of the portal, and then some guys who actually had some time left, not just a one and done guy in the portal, and so. We were able to find some of those guys on the outside and on the inside.
Just bringing in Wendell, just what jumped out about him to you?
Well, he's a very talented young man. He can rush the quarterback. He's got good power. He's got good leverage. Right, he can bend. A lot of things stood out about Wendell, and he was actually he was productive this year, so that was a plus. So he was that part. He's a really talented young man. Gifted. Physically, and so that was what stood out to me the most.
Elijah's an interesting one too. Just wasn't really touted coming out of high school, and then he goes to leads Conference USA in sacks. Just what transition is this going to be like for him? But it seems like there's a high ceiling there.
Yeah, obviously, he was a true freshman last year, and he played mostly in passing situations for them, and he was very, very successful. And so here he has to transition to a more of an every down type of player. Obviously, we still like what he does on third down, but we're trying to make him an every down player.
You coached at Texas A&M, and Coach Peterson was a player there, right?
Yeah. Go ahead and date me. Well, that's good.
So with that, I guess you saw the beginning of him, and now you see him as a defense coordinator. What's his evolution been like?
Well, I saw when I was around him, he was a young man at the time. Now he's a grown man now, but you can tell he was a smart football player. He soaked everything in. He played a position that. Not a lot of white guys play, and he done he was really good, and he played with a lot of good. He had some good teammates on his team, but he was, he had to be pretty tough, to be a white corner out there, and so that was good. Now, but you knew, he had a lot of. His football IQ was high at the time, and so it didn't surprise me when he got into coaching.
So like being bossed around by him now? I think it's a different transition.
Yeah, hey, I'm just glad to be here. He's and the good thing about Jordan, he's a secondary guy, but he's very, he understands the front seven really well. Not only the gap responsibilities, but also the techniques and those type of things, which is impressed me for a guy who's a secondary guy and coming in. So he makes it pretty easy to for me as far as a younger guy coming in and being the defense coordinator, because he's very knowledgeable about the game.
What did you notice with Colin when he was the offensive coordinator here and you worked with him that made you think he'd be a successful head coach one day?
Well, if you back it up a little bit, when Colin was playing, I was coaching against him, and so he was one of those guys you watch on tape and didn't look like he was really running real fast or he could really throw the ball real well, but he just beat you. He was just one of those guys that was a competitor and just, he just whatever he set his mind to, he did pretty much. And then when he was the offensive coordinator, I just really was impressed with the relationships he had with the players, not only at his position, quarterback, but also at all the positions. And he was just he wasn't a flashy, he was just himself, and the kids really really respected that in Colin, I think, and they were willing to play for him, and so that's one thing. Just the way the players kind of the way they interacted with him, I thought that was impressive for a young coach. It wasn't because he was young and he was relating to him. It was because they respected him for his knowledge of the game and how he coached the game, and I thought they really respected him as a young coach for that as well. And he did. I mean, he was obviously a really bright young man and intelligent young man. Obviously, he's put a really good resume together as an offensive coordinator, and now that he's back, I mean, he's we've seen him on the defense side of the ball a little bit more often now. So I didn't see him on the defense side of the ball very often when he was offensive coordinator.
Do you have to smoke much more meat now that you're in charge of the whole defensive line?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to, but yeah, we always kind of got together, DN and D tackle, when we had like a little outing. So it won't be much more meat. It all depends on how much these guys can eat. That's going to determine how much meat I have to smoke. Yeah.